Hello and welcome to the Jim Ruff Show. Today we're here on a special show because I'm here alone for one thing, but we also have some videotape that we'll be showing interspersed with my commentary, I guess, about the recent Wisdom Council that happened here in Port Townsend. Now, Marcy Van Cleve, who is the teacher for the PI and ICE programs, the alternative high school programs, has about 12 students that are putting on a town dialogue for the citizens of Port Townsend. And they're going to do it 3 times this year, and hopefully it'll continue next year. So the idea is that the Wisdom Council process will start and get bigger, and eventually will involve the whole town in one conversation that where we can create a voice of we the people. And we're demonstrating this process, hopefully for the benefit of other places. There are students in Vashon Island that are coming over, and our students are going over there to think about doing it for the city of Vashon. The city of Victoria, British Columbia, is interested in watching the process, and in fact, on the 3rd Wisdom Council, there'll be about 30 people coming to visit and watch the Wisdom Council process happen. So what you're going to see first is a short 2.5-minute segment of the beginning of the community meeting, where first Allison Slater, the student representative from the Chimicum and Port Townsend High School program, it's a class in contemporary world problems. She's sort of the lead convener, and she will welcome people, and then she'll introduce Deanna Martin, who is the director of the Center for Wise Democracy, which puts on the Wisdom Councils in different locations, and Deanna will talk. And the whole segment will take about 2.5 minutes, and then we'll take the next step. So could we have the first segment of the video, please?
Our Wisdom Council participants will be introduced shortly by Ellie, but I would like to introduce their facilitators at this time. The lead facilitator is Deanna Martin from Seattle, and the co-facilitator is Matt Tyler, who lives here. The plan for this meeting is for you to hear a brief description about the Wisdom Council process, to introduce the Wisdom Council participants and hear their statements for the community, and then for all of us in small groups to have an opportunity to respond to the statements. Deanna Martin will now share with us about what is a Wisdom Council. She is a co-founder and director of the Center for Wise Democracy, which helps sponsor this Wisdom Council. Thank you.
So welcome everybody, I'm Deanna, I'm from Seattle, I'm the director of the Center for Wise Democracy, and our mission as a nonprofit is to help communities create a voice and will of we the people, and we do that through this process that we call the Wisdom Council. So we supported the class, the CWP class, the Contemporary World Problems class, and doing this project. They have 3 Wisdom Council events that are going to happen over the course of the school year, so this is the first of 3 that will happen. They have randomly selected these 10 participants from registered voters in the city of Port Townsend. So we generated a random sample of 500 names. We sent them letters and a postcard that they returned. And then the students at a farmer's market recently drew the names of those who would be participants in this process. So that's how we arrived with this wonderful group standing here in front of you, sitting here in front of you. And basically, the Wisdom Council process is designed, as I said, to create a voice and a will of we the people. And that means that it's ongoing. So what you're going to hear today is the beginning of an ongoing conversation that you are all a part of. So what you hear, you're going to get a chance to respond to. We hope that it reverberates throughout the community in a lot of ways, and over time begins to establish some real consensus about what's important to this town, what you want to have done, what it looks like, and what's important to you. So that's what the process is about, and you're going to be a participant in it for the town of Port Townsend over the next year, which is really exciting.
So, good, we're back. So you got a chance to see the beginning of the the 10 randomly selected citizens from the town of Port Townsend, and you'll hear from them in a minute. And as Deanna explained, they sent out letters to 500 random names from the city of Port Townsend, and drew from those who could make it, drew the names at a farmer's market. So in the next segment, what you're going to see is the statements themselves that they came up with. So they talked for a day and a half, and Deanna was the lead facilitator, and Matt Taylor was the co-facilitator. He's from Port Townsend, as it turns out. And so that group hammered out some unanimous statements. And so maybe, could we have the second segment, please?
Share with you their experience.
So what you're going to hear is some written statements that they have drafted over these last 2 days through a lot of hard work and conversation. These are unanimous statements that they've come up with. So these are things that everyone supported in what they talked about, which is a feat in and of itself. Congratulations. And so they're going to share those statements with you and then take some time to tell you a little bit about their experience with the process personally.
Our first statement of importance is about creating community. Create a sense of acceptance and belonging for everyone in Port Townsend, enabling us to see through each other's eyes and engage with one another in public discourse. We wish to include community spaces, for example, non-vehicular zones where people and businesses can thrive together. An example is City Repair in Portland. We wish to see community gardens, free access where everyone can relate to something that allows them to experience community. Volunteerism, personal responsibility for reaching beyond our groups. Meeting, working together, and ongoing public conversation.
Yes, my name is Donna, and this is for the community center. And we envision a physical place that provides facilities for the arts, physical health, and well-being, and development of community. This space will unite and welcome the entire community. Examples include an indoor track, an aquatic center, gymnasium, a weight room, a gallery, a theater, and a free meeting space, bulletin space, and a dance space.
My name is Louis Hopper, and I'm going to talk a little bit, just make a statement here, on economic viability. We want Port Townsend to be a place that is economically vital, so that youth and families can thrive. We encourage private and public organizations to bring resources to those things that are already inherently valuable to our community, such as organic farming, the maritime industry, holistic medicine, renewable energy, and sustainable building.
We address social issues. We are concerned about our government's effect on us and our effect on the world. We affirm the value and importance of our Constitution and Bill of Rights, as our governing documents, undiluted. We urge our local government to create an official ombudsperson or persons to connect our town with Indian Island and the police, fire, and emergency management teams. We are aware of the importance of the maritime industry to Port Townsend and support the contemporary and historical aspects of the industry.
And sustainability. Environmental well-being is a concern to this community. We care about the global environment and what we are leaving for future generations. We want our government to affirm, permit, and encourage green building materials and practices.
Hi, and welcome back. You can see from the statements that the first pass, the first time you do the Wisdom Council, you come up with something like a town vision. And the town vision, in this case, you have to say this is the best way to come up with a town vision. I mean, one way to do it would be to have elected officials run off in a corner and then tell everybody what it is. Another way to do it would be to have a town meeting and have just the people that walk in the door be involved. And what's happening here is that you're randomly selecting people. And those people then are addressing what they think is important and come up with, in the first meeting anyway, statements that sound like vision statements. Their intentionality of what we're trying to do as a town. And you can see some of the highly conflicted type statements got pushed into statements that everybody could support. So that was really powerful. Next time, what will happen is that the Wisdom Council will randomly be selected, and they will have access to these statements. So they won't need to go back to the vision. They might refine it a little bit, but they will probably choose issues that are important to them that take this another step farther. And hopefully more people from the community will be involved in the community meeting. So the idea is that gradually we're building a town conversation that reaches something close to unanimity. I mean, I'm not sure that I'd find somebody who would actually disagree with those statements. The statements are powerful, and yet they're not something you want to argue, that people, I think, might argue over. But even then, even if they did, then the conversation would continue until the next Wisdom Council. So it's a building process. Now the next segment is we ask people to tell little stories about, or tell a little bit about their experience of being on the Wisdom Council. And so we've selected a few of those stories they pass the mic and tell a little bit about what their experience was. And we've selected a few of those for you to look at. But one of the interesting things I'd like you to notice is the difference in tone, is that when you read the statements, there's kind of an emotional detachment from it. And what we've found is that the power of this process often is really in the stories. Because as the stories get conveyed, people really feel empowered to come together as a whole and support the joint project, the shared vision, whatever. So anyway, you can see the difference as people talk about the process that they experienced in the stories. So Gary, could we have the next segment, please?
And I was also very surprised and heartened by how suddenly something would resolve with no advance warning from my perspective. I found it a lot like a really well-designed plot where you'd think, oh no, they're never going to make it out. And then suddenly something, out of the blue, but it was viable. And that's the way I experienced this. It was very enjoyable, and I love getting to know people in depth in these kinds of circumstances. where you really get to see under each other's skin. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too, and I always cherish educational experiences, and that's what this was for me right from the beginning. We learned how to be quiet and let someone else talk, and then after we learned that, we unlearned it and found out we could actually talk at the same time and get something done, and then relearn the other. But there's about 20 or 25 or 30 sheets of paper, and there's probably a lot more that didn't get written. And we came to a consensus, to a unanimous consensus on what we have down here. And that's an amazing learning process to try to do that with such big ideas and big topics. So I appreciated this learning experience for myself and getting to know these people right off the bat, Friday night and Saturday. Thank you. Casey?
I had a very good experience with this too. I think the biggest thing was trying to come with an open mind, coming to last night, and it was definitely tough because everyone in the community, I feel, you have something you want to bring to it or you have something you want to speak about. And it's great to hear everyone else's opinion and be open to it. I'm glad we had a pretty diverse group, I thought, for the most part, Fort Townsend. And I think it works as a good start. And we have definitely room for improvement, but I like the basis of our statements and what we came to. I was probably the most skeptical or worried about actually getting somewhere today when the time was ticking to about 3:15. So I think it all worked out. I had a great time. Thank you.
Just, excuse me, just sitting here, I'd like everybody just to turn their head around and look at the back wall. I see all that wallpaper, and it's all reduced down to this one page. Every bit of that wallpaper is reduced down to that page. And to come to that kind of consensus on that much diversity gives me hope. Hope for our community, that we can become a stronger and more bonded community. And I think that's what the biggest thing that I took away from here, is that we've taken another step toward becoming the community of Fort Townsend and the things that we find important. Thank you.
So the Wisdom Council, it might not look like it, but the Wisdom Council had a lot of diverse opinions, they went through a frustrating time and when they first thing, and this is what normally happens. There's a period of frustration at the early stages, but through the process of facilitating, which Deanna did, people overcome that, and in the end, you have an enjoyable time. And that has been the case every time. I mean, I think just about every person that's ever been on a Wisdom Council, and I really think it's been every person, has said at the end that it was fun, that it was worthwhile, that if you get selected, do it. And I think what happens is that people get a chance to really have a high-quality conversation with people from different views and different perspectives, and to come up with things that each person feels is meaningful. And so there's a sense of empowerment that is the core piece. In fact, the organizer of the Wolfert, Austria Wisdom Council, they were just blown away, and they wrote a little story about that how the people who felt normally completely disempowered were feeling so empowered about taking charge of their system and making things happen, and not tossing bombs at the elected officials or making them feel uncomfortable. It's just not that kind of conversation. It's a conversation that everybody really likes being in, and it has a sense of meaning, and it's empowering. And that's the core of this process, is to change the nature of the conversation so that we have a creative and collaborative conversation. So what happens next is that after people hear the statements and after they hear the stories, then they turn their chairs and get into small groups and talk in small groups. Now, we don't have good video from that. It's kind of hard anyway, but people, what we hear, what was really exciting about this process is that high school youth put on the conference for the town. So there were a lot of high school youth in the room talking with adults. And the adults loved it, and the high school students seemed to love it. I mean, I think they did. They had a really good time. I noticed that they changed the way they carried themselves, and it was just a joy to be with the high school students talking. And it's sort of shocking, I think, to them to realize how much the adult population wants that to happen. But in this case, it was an age division, so that we had the young and the old talking together. In other cases, it might be a racial division, or some kind of division between the blue guys and the red guys. So it's a very healing process of getting everybody in the room, talking in a way that makes sense, trying to make progress, liking one another. And this is not just the small group, the Wisdom Council, but this is the whole system. So it transmits to the whole system. So in this last segment, it's just a short segment. Gary, could you maybe run this segment?
So, what was exciting was that this is just an amazing thing that happened, that none of us have really maybe experienced this kind of talking together before, but we need to keep doing this, and we need to make it grow. And that young people, we need to salute them for providing this opportunity for the town, and hopefully they'll lead us to more of it in the future, and you talked about ways we could continue to grow this work here too.
So this town dialogue was put on by the students in a class, and the point is to create a total town dialogue. And what you just saw was parts of that process. You saw parts of the community town meeting process. What you didn't see were the students meeting in the background, trying to do the random selection, writing letters to the media. We really didn't get very good media coverage this time. I think we're going to get better coverage next time. And the idea is that each time we do this, we take a step forward, and there's more people involved, more people come to the community meetings, and hopefully on the third session, we plan to do it in the high school gym so that it could be televised live. And ideally, what would happen is people could meet in churches or in homes and watch the process on TV also, and have meetings there. So that in theory, over time, probably won't happen this year, but as we continue this process, what the ideal is that the whole town will essentially be hearing these statements, talking about them, and talking about the stories, and basically saying yes. Now, saying, yeah, we think so too, or if they don't say yes, we think so too, that they are continuing to talk, and maybe the write letters to the editor, and the idea is that then the conversation will continue in the next randomly selected group. And so let me just read through the people that were selected. There was Lorene Martin, Ruth Ballard, Forrest Schomer, Casey Gribble, Shanti Mai, Louis Hoffer, Donna Olin, Barbara Marseille, Doreen Snyder, and William Densel. So that was the first Port Townsend Wisdom Council. Now the next one is in February 9th and 10th, or at least that weekend. And so the 500 names that will be randomly selected will go out this week, I hope. And if you get selected, randomly selected, I'm hoping that you'll choose to come. And it seems like a big sacrifice maybe because you're giving up a weekend, but it turns out to be a blast. And it turns out to be meaningful. And it turns out to be something that you'll never forget. You'll remember it all your lives. In fact, one of my favorite memories is walking down Port Townsend Street a few years ago, and some student who had been randomly selected for our first trial version from the high school came up to me and just told me that that was an extremely powerful moment in their lives, and that they, of course this was a man now, and that they had never forgotten it, and that they recognized me. And so I just had a real sense of how important this can be. Another person randomly selected said it changed his life, that he was on drugs and alcohol, and had been randomly selected to be in one of our town wisdom councils, not in Port Townsend, and that he kind of got it, that he was part of community and could be presentable in the community and talk reasonably with other people, and made a new commitment to stop drinking. So I guess those are sidelights, but I think the process is enjoyable, and that it's impactful for people. They like it. So let me ask the basic question. Why are we doing this? We're doing it because we want to transform the way democracy works. And this, what's happening in Port Townsend, is a model. It's a model that other people can look at and point to. So even if, ideally we want to transform Port Townsend, but it's also a learning exercise and experience for people really all over the world, because now there's interest in New Zealand and Italy and Austria and Ireland and all kinds of places. So Port Townsend is the guide. And thank you very much. I appreciate your paying attention and watching the exciting adventure of this Wisdom Council. Thank you.